Greetings and welcome. My name is Associate Professor Asheer Ram, and I am part of the Wits Margo Steele School of Accountancy. Thank you for joining me. As the use of artificial intelligence becomes ever more popular, there's an important aspect that some people are forgetting, and that is with regards to ethics. There's ethics considerations in terms of how we use AI in a university space, the use by students, the use by governments, say, and general people. But there's also ethical concerns around how AI is trained, whether the data that is being used to train the various models, is accessible, and whether the companies should have access to that. So you could see that as AI becomes more popular, there's an important dimension that is sometimes understudied or underconsidered, that is ethics. In this video, we're going to be considering a specific case where AI was used on the Reddit platform by University of Zurich lecturers. And we're going to sort of view this case study through the lens of ethical considerations and also the use of AI by researchers in a research project, also considering the concepts of consent and research ethics. So that's the main thrust of this video. So one of the first questions, I suppose, is what is Reddit? You may not be familiar with the term Reddit. Well, Reddit is effectively an application or website that is an American or based in the USA social media and social news aggregator. So they've got trending topics under the popular section, and you can go and sort of get caught up. I use Reddit myself to catch up on popular news, mostly American, because that's where most of the user base is, but it does tend to have world news. However, within Reddit, there's what's called subreddits, effectively sub-forums, which are dedicated to very specific topics. So you've got cryptocurrency or crypto asset subreddits. You've got subreddits dedicated to black cats, cat pictures, space subreddits, sports subreddits. Pretty much any topic you can think of probably has a subreddit on the Reddit platform. We're going to be considering a specific subreddit where this experiment was carried out by University of Zurich researchers, and this is called the Change My View subreddit, or r/Change My View. R/ is how you denote a subreddit. Now, what's the point of this subreddit? Well, it's certainly not to share cat or dog pictures, but the point of this subreddit is users will post an opinion that they think is perhaps flawed or needs changing, and then users will comment on that post and sort of in a discursive way or through discourse try and change the opinion of the person who posted. They're known as the original poster, the OP. So the Change My View subreddit is designed or is created so that people who believe that the opinion may not be completely correct can get opinions from other users in order to perhaps change their opinion or not. It just depends on the levels of interaction. This is where the experiment took place. So let's now consider what was the experiment and how does artificial intelligence fit in? Well, researchers from the University of Zurich over a period of months used multiple AI accounts or AI bots to respond to posts that were made on this subreddit. So they had developed these AI accounts and they were going in and putting comments and arguing and sort of contributing to the discourse around the various topics where people were posting. So here's some examples of kind of how they were using AI, and one of the issues that we'll sort of consider a bit more later, but a user who is posted would perhaps or would likely not be aware that users who were commenting on their post were not actual humans, but that were actual AI bots. And some of how these bots were behaving and how the AI was behaving, or how it was used, does raise a concern. So, for example, there was an AI pretending to be a victim of assault on one of the posts in their comments. There was one that was acting as a trauma counselor, specializing in abuse, and responding as a trauma counselor who specializes in abuse, but it was actually just artificial intelligence. There was AI accusing members of a specific group of people of causing the death of innocents, AI posing as a black person who was opposed to the Black Lives Matter movement that was popular in America, and AI who was posing as a person who had supposedly received substandard healthcare at a foreign hospital. You can see that just the sort of conduct there, I'm sure, raises concerns for you to say, if these are not real people or real individuals, then these are fictitious people, and what they're saying then, obviously cannot be considered proper and part of the legitimate discourse that should be taking place on the Change My View subreddit. So once the experiment is completed, the researchers had informed Reddit that this had taken place. It's important to note that this was against subreddit and Reddit rules. So each subreddit has their own rules which specify, how, like a code of conduct for the users on that subreddit. And of course, they said that the use of AI was not allowed or was prohibited. So it went against subreddit rules, but together with that, it also went against Reddit rules where users should be aware or be made aware that they are interacting with AI, if that is the case, these bots. And this was only done ex post facto, or after the fact, after the study had taken place, and the results were written up, and the researchers were ready to publish, and then it was kind of the ethical issues sort of came to light then once Reddit was informed. So there were various sort of interventions, the moderators. So each subreddit has moderators who are in charge of ensuring that the conduct on that subreddit goes according to the rules. So the moderators released a statement saying that they were unaware, and they emphasized the need for researchers to obtain explicit permission before engaging in such studies. This was echoed by the chief legal officer of Reddit, who reiterated that they weren't aware of it, and they noted that it was deeply wrong, this conduct on both a moral and legal level, and so they were engaging from a legal side to understand what had been done and why there was no information. And I think it's important that we sort of also consider the side of the researchers. So the researchers and the study from the University of Zurich had obtained ethics approval. As we know, research needs ethical boundaries and ethical considerations. So they said that it had obtained approval from the Institutional Review Board, and they contended that the risks involved were minimal. I think that is a debatable presumption there, or debatable position, given how these AI bots were acting and the very, I suppose, vulnerable ways in which they were engaging with the other subredditors on the other users. They did justify the approach. We know that informed consent is one of the foundational cornerstones of research ethics in particular. And they said that because the nature of the study was such that informed consent was, not or was not able to be gathered, that that was part of the richness of the study. There's definitely arguments for and against that. I think, though, what came out further beyond that was that the Institutional Review Board, it turns out, had made recommendations to the researchers that were not necessarily taken into account. They did raise the issue that, the conduct should comply with subreddit and Reddit rules, which, doesn't seem to be the case. They were initially, or the researchers were initially intending to seek publication of the study, but I think once the ethical, quandaries were really laid out, they decided not to further publish or take the study forward. And I think the crux of the matter really is that it comes down to a matter of, yes, AI is an excellent tool, and I'm sure we're all using it, whether it's day to day or month to month. It does have its place in society, but it needs to be underpinned by an ethical understanding in its use and in its training. What is important, and then especially from a research ethics point of view, is that informed consent was not sought in this study, and it remains the pillar and the cornerstone of research ethics. And from its ethical use, we need to also make sure that the research ethics are being complied with, and that any recommendations made to the study, needed to be taken on board. The potential harm of the AI, is not well understood in this study or this case study, and I think generally. So proper safeguards must be implemented and must be thought about before we, let AI run ahead of ourselves. So as I said at the beginning, as the use of AI becomes ever more ubiquitous, it is up to us as, researchers, and us just as users and people who are now living in an AI era, to ensure that ethical considerations remain front of mind. So I hope you found this insightful. Thank you very much once again for joining me, and take care.